I heard one very powerful wisdom, powerful light say, "Stop screaming. We're going to get you out of the freezer, but first," and I was gone. Next thing I knew is I was at the bottom of this amazing stairway, and I knew that there was a big circle inside this room. It was like a Greco-Roman room. It had an open ceiling, and then below I knew there was a well, and I didn't know what the well was, but I wanted to. And I remember looking at the well and seeing words, and now looking back, it looked like DNA, but what it was one consciousness, and it was people's prayers, and it was moving like one consciousness, and it was going up into the spirit world, and that's where I was. And I looked at the three lights and I asked, "Where am I?" And they said, "You're in the room of heart's desires." And I said, "Oh, do you answer all those?" And they said, "No, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them." And that upset me because my mom used to say, just because you like it doesn't mean it's good for you.
Beautiful. I love that. In this episode of Elevated Conversations, we speak to Susan Grau, intuitive guide and healer to the stars, starring in Gwyneth Paltrow's GOOP program. She's worked as a motivational speaker. She's an author. And in this chat, we talk about her near-death experience and how this opened her up to the spirit world and her ability to be able to read and apply these applications and messages from spirit to her everyday life to help people in all different walks of life. It is an absolutely fascinating conversation. We really hope you enjoy this one, guys. Susan Grau. So we're really excited to talk to you today about your whole journey, but also how you're of service to the planet. You know, it's like one thing to have a beautiful psychic connection, and there are a lot of people who have sort of stumbled on their psychic abilities, but it really seems you're using these abilities that you have to like help humanity and to spread the word. And I was just smiling so much when I saw that your new book that's about to come out has in it activities and things that people can do.
Oh,
I love the cover. Yes.
Isn't it beautiful?
yes.
Infinite lessons.
Yeah, I got it about a week ago, and I just leave it right in front of me so I can stare at it, because not because my name's on it, but because the cover's so pretty.
Yeah.
And I helped, they started out with something I didn't like at all, which is usually, it was all purple and pinky. And I said, it looks like an ice cream cone. And this is a adult book, So yeah, I'm excited. Comes out soon.
Tell us a bit about your book. It's coming out in July. Is that right?
Coming out in July. Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, Wisdom from the Spirit World on Living, Dying, and the In-Between. And it starts out all about, it starts out just saying your baby's in the freezer. Those were the words my mother heard. As terrifying as it sounded, she thought it was preposterous. And so she went about her business. And then it goes into the experience. What I love about my book, just to touch on it for a moment, is that it has integration moments and it has questions at the end so that you can tap into your own abilities and understand the spirit world and have that connection. So I really love this book because every chapter has that. Excuse me, I was kissing my dog and I can tell because my dog's being so good, she's not barking and she's staying out of the room. And so I was giving her a kissy and I got her hair.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. So this experience that you went through, because a lot of people sometimes think that if they weren't born with psychic abilities, then they probably have missed out in this lifetime and they're never really going to be able to turn them on. What's your view on that?
Well, I did have it prior to, I have to be honest. I was able to see animals float when they would die, but I was so tiny and I had never lost a loved one. So I have no idea if I would have seen them, but, or one that I knew. Okay. So let me say it that way. And so I think it expanded it. But my honest truth here is that everyone has the ability. And it's a matter of working anything. If I'm going to sit down and play the piano, I got a piano for my 65th birthday from my husband, and I've been learning to play, and I have to practice. And it's frustrating to me because I want to sit down and play Journey. I just want to have it go.
Yeah.
And it's not that way. And if I stop practicing, I go back to step one because I have to. And it's the same thing with the spirit world. We all have the ability to do something beautiful and be creative with the spirit world and connect, but we have to practice. And then it's the trust that the practice will get there. And I notice as I'm playing piano, it's so similar to me, honestly, because I have to trust instead of concentrating. I have to trust I'm going to know that next right chord or that next right, hit. And it's made a huge difference in how I view it too. So it's that way with everything. And this is something you have to practice. But it's there. It's definitely there.
So tell us about your near-death experience. We haven't really spoken to anyone about a near-death experience as such on this podcast yet. And we'd love to hear the story about what happened to you as a little girl for the listeners that are listening to this to help share that even concept.
Okay. So I was playing with some boys. I wanted to play fort, and they told me if I wanted to play fort, I had to get popsicles. Now, we had a freezer, one of the first stand-up freezers in the garage, and it wasn't working right. So my mom had unplugged it and emptied it out. And she was supposed to bolt it and turn it towards the wall, per my father, but she did not. And we didn't go into the garage. We weren't supposed to go into the garage because we had a boat in there, and it was just not a place for kids to play. And but I, of course, went into the garage. I think somebody had the door open because I don't remember opening it. And I said, okay, I'm going to get popsicles. And as I'm crawling in and I'm calling out all the colors, you want pink, you want purple, what do you want? I got up in there and I recognized that it wasn't plugged in. And as I was getting ready to tell them, oh, there's no popsicles, can I still play? They closed the freezer door.
Wow.
And then I thought I was in on a joke, and I was kind of giggling, and I could hear them, and they were laughing, and they were older than me. So they thought it was funny, I guess. And the next thing I know, I hear the thud of the garage door. And I recognized I'm not in a joke here. This is not a joke. I am in this dark, musty hole, and I'm not getting out. And I started screaming as loud as I could. I was completely panicked. I knew at 4.5 years old that I would die. I knew that. It innately comes to us because, mind you, we've had other lives and we've died before. So the memory comes up, that feeling comes up, and it's just innate inside of us. And I started screaming at the top of my lungs, and my mother heard during this whole time. She heard the screams, and she said it sounded like a cat in heat. We had land, and there's a particular high-pitched sound that cats have when they're in heat, and my mom thought that's what it was. And so she ignored it. And then I heard stop screaming, and I saw these white lights, 3, and I didn't. I kept screaming. And I heard one very powerful powerful light say, stop screaming. We're going to get you out of the freezer, but first, and I was gone. And my mother said she heard your baby's in the freezer, and she ignored it. And my mother had this gift, but my mother was locked up. If you think back all those years ago, you just didn't talk about that, seeing people, and they had her medicated. And so, so she ignored it. And next thing I knew is I was at the bottom of this amazing stairway. And I knew that there was a big circle inside this room. It was like a Greco-Roman room. Now, I want to be really clear. I didn't understand all this as a child, but I'm telling you in adult words.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want people to understand that, because people ask me, well, how did you know all that as a child? I said, I didn't know any of it.
Yeah.
I just was there. But it was a Greco-Roman room, and it had an open ceiling. And then below, I knew there was a well, and I didn't know what the well was, but I wanted to. So the next thing, and I looked up and I was thinking, how am I going to get up these stairs? They seemed really sharp to me and spiky, like I couldn't get up them. And I was there. I was on the corner of that well, just like that. And I remember looking at the well and seeing words. And now looking back, it looked like DNA, but what it was one consciousness. And it was people's prayers. And I was hearing things like, my mom's got cancer. She's going to die. Please save her life. And God, I want a new car and I'm going to turn 16 and my dad won't buy me a new car. Please make him buy me a new car. And, just everything you can think of, I was hearing, and it was moving like one consciousness, and it was going up into the spirit world. And that's where I was. And I looked at the 3 lights and I asked, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires. And I said, oh, do you answer all those? Because I didn't even understand what they were saying to me, but I knew I was hearing prayers. And I said, do you answer all those? And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them. And that upset me, because my mom used to say, just because you like it doesn't mean it's good for you. And just because you want it doesn't mean you're going to get it because it's not good for you. And she used to say that kind of stuff. So I thought, that's not very nice. I didn't really understand. And then I saw some other things in that room. It would take us 3 hours to go through this whole thing, but I saw some other things. And then as they were saying that, and I was feeling that way, I saw this road. I called it the yellow brick road because it was yellow. It was golden, but I had seen The Wizard of Oz. It was brand new out. And I just saw The Wizard of Oz there. And so that's where I thought I was. And it was this beautiful road, and it was golden yellow. It's hard to describe it. And on the end of it, I saw pyramids. And I was watching humans go over to the pyramids and pull from the bottom of the pyramid, and then they'd go back and start paving a path. And I innately knew at that moment, not later in life, I understand it more now, but I knew that that was their life journey, and they were pulling from the bottom of it. What happens when you pull from the bottom of a pyramid? It's unbalanced. And I knew that somehow. And I heard them saying, for the love of God, please help me. Their paths were all crooked and bumpy and messed up really bad. I saw all these cracks, and, it was horrible. And they were praying for help. And I watched the spirit world, these angels, what I called angels. And I want to preface it this with, they come as we understand them. And I understood angels, so I had no fear. And children often see angels, or however they've been taught. And very few people in the world have never heard of an angel. Let me say that. So anyway, I watched them come in, and they were pulling the pavers off these roads, and they were putting them back on top of the pyramids, and or underneath. Underneath. And then they went to the top, and they balanced that pyramid. Then they went to the top of the pyramid, and they were pulling off from the top of the pyramid, and they started paving the path. And I watched the pyramid recreate itself, so I knew it was our energy. Our life journey was our energy, because it was rebuilding. The pavers were coming back. And I was stunned by that. And then I asked them, what are you doing? And they said, we are the pavers, you are not. All you have to do is walk it. And I said, how do you know if you're walking it right? And I was almost 5. I'm going to ask the question. So why? I did a lot of that up there, by the way. Why? And they said, because we bless and block everything. And make no mistake, you can get through a wall or a block, battered and bruised at best, or you can shift. And when you shift, if there's another wall, you shift again. If there's another wall, you shift again. And they said, what you try to run from chases you. What you try to control controls you. And they said, we are the pavers, you are not. And you will see us paving the path when you keep moving. And I'm paraphrasing this. You will see us paving the path, and there will be unbalances in it, but you will be able to walk it. And you think, and they pointed to my head. I didn't know if my head was there, but they pointed to it. You think you know what's best for you. And they covered their heart, what I called their heart. We know what's best for you. And that was very profound for me. And then they said some other things. And then the next thing I know, I'm in this room called the Room of Knowledge. And people call it the Cossack records. I don't even know if I say it right. I have no connection to that word whatsoever. For me, it's the room of knowledge. And so I'm 65. I have to say that because this is going to make sense why I'm saying it. In my day, there were no virtual anything, and it was never even a thought in anyone's mind. Okay, so we weren't thinking ahead going, we're going to space someday. You see, that was kind of what they were thinking. They weren't thinking, we're going to have virtual computers and we're going to have cell phones. That wasn't a thought. But it looked like books flying, like we see on the computer, like it was coming in and fading out and coming in and fading out. And it looked virtual, looking back. And there were groups of families standing there. So I knew there were soul families. I knew that innately. And they were talking about their next incarnation. And me and the angels are kind of like a mouse in the corner. And I'm watching this. And I'm not understanding, but they're saying things like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to learn this and I'm going to learn that. My soul's going to grow so big. It's going to expand so much. And I could hear them saying to them, you know what, sweetheart, I don't think you want to do all that. I think you want to think of something else. Let's not have that much trauma. Let's not go through. And they would go, no, I can do it. I can do it. I know I can. I call it the PhD of hard knocks because, I took the PhD course. I've had a lot of things happen in my journey, and a lot of people do. And they said to them, we won't stop you. You have free will. And you will have free will when you get there and you'll be able to choose from different doors. But we want you to know that this is going to be a very hard journey. I know, but my soul's going to expand. I know I'm going to expand really fast. Like maybe I won't have to come back here. I don't know. Maybe they were thinking that. I always question that in my mind. And then they were gone. They got approval and then they were gone. And I go, where did they go? Like, where are they? They were there and then they were gone. And I was so little that it was like watching a movie, right? And they said they went to their next incarnation. Didn't know what they meant. I understood the free will part though, because they really made a point to go over that with me over and over throughout this journey. That our free will is for our soul expansion, and without it, there is no expansion, and we might as well not be here. We have choices, and those choices decide how our soul will expand. How much, how little, how far, how close. And pain is our greatest motivator for change. And so they were choosing pain. So anyway, moving forward out of that, they did more explaining and I kind of understood a little bit, but not really. I ended up in the room of room of companions, which are animals. And it was beautiful. And I could see them running around and playing and having fun and romping. And they were romping. And those flowers that you blow on to make a wish? Dandelions, are they called?
Yes.
Did I say it right? Is that them? Okay. That's what was in this field that they were running through, and you could see all that flying in the air, and it was just beautiful. And they were healthy and young and happy. And by the way, everyone looked about 33 years old. There were no little children and big people and old people.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because through my journey, they come to me at about that age, but I know how old they actually were. But a lot, not the babies, they don't. But the older people come to me about 33, and someone said to me, "Did you know Jesus died at 33?" And I was, really? I learned things that I didn't know. And I thought that was interesting because I always used to say they're 33. Well, the numbers 33 mattered to me. And so I thought maybe, I'm just thinking that, but that's how they come. So anyway, the next thing I know, I'm in that field and it's beautiful and I'm little. And I remember I had a dress on, and I know that sounds bizarre to know that, but it had big giant daisies all over it.
Oh.
I've never shared that, by the way, because I'm really careful about not sharing every detail so that I have more books to write. But and it's the honest truth. I hate to say that because it's not nice, but it's the truth. And I was looking at all these daisies and I was just peaceful and happy. And on the right side was a cobblestone cottage. And on the left side was a mountain. And I saw this, what I thought was a dog at first, come up to me. Now, this sounds very magical and mystical, but the spirit world is magical and mystical. And I want to say that. It was a wolf, but I didn't recognize it. Now, I'm very attached to wolves. I go visit them. They love to jump on me. I have no fear of them. They are amazing, beautiful creatures. And I have pictures of them like looking in my eyes and bowing to me. It's bizarre. Not bowing like but bowing like I'm not going to bite you.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like your energy, kind of. So anyway, I remember feeling very safe. And I didn't know any of those animals, just to be honest with you, because I had never lost an animal. So people always ask me, did you recognize any animals? No, I'd never lost one, so I wouldn't have at that point. So anyway, I looked to the left, and there was this mountain, and there was this entity. It's not describable. There are no human words. Sorry. It was like a blob, but like a body. It was so bright that if I thought I had eyes, but it didn't hurt my eyes. And it didn't have a male female feeling to it. I didn't feel that. I don't think I was looking for that at that age. I just felt this enormous power. And I wanted to climb up that mountain so bad. And I knew I couldn't. I was like stuck in my seat. I was sitting on the ground and I was stuck there. I couldn't get up. And I'm looking at this beautiful energy that was pure love. Like, there's no words. And then I said, I want to come up there. In my head, I'm saying this is all telepathy, right? And I see this light, like forcefully come towards me. And it was that, but it was still on the mountain. So it was projecting out this love energy of power. And then, I don't know, I felt that, and I was really in awe, and I didn't want to take my eyes off of it. But then I felt a light on my right side, and I saw this floating angelic being come out of that cobblestone cottage. And I remember thinking, the only thing I thought was, I want to float. Can I float? I want to float. I don't think I did. I probably did, but I know I did. And I watched it float, and I thought, this is so fun. We're going to play a game. I'm going to float. And she came up to me and she said, it's time to go, Susie. And she took me to water. And I just knew I was on water. And it was a river, and we were walking. I think we were floating, but I felt like I was walking. And I kept thinking, she's going to make me float anytime. This is so fun. And she turned around and she looked at me. I felt like she knelt down almost. And she said, you're going to have a very difficult life journey. And you're going to use it for the greatest good, and you will help people. And I'm looking at her and I don't understand the things she's saying right now, but she's saying hard and pain and things I don't like to hear. And she said, you will survive. You will choose survival. You will be okay, and you will help others. That will be your life path journey. And I thought she would have said soul journey, but she didn't. So here's the catch. The soul journey is self-love. Going through the life path journey teaches us that. So anyway, she said, are you ready to go? And I was, no, I haven't floated. I want to float, and you're scaring me. And she said, your mommy's waiting for you. And that was it. That was enough for me. All this time, my mom's hearing your baby's in the freezer. She finally listened.
Oh.
And I stepped into the water. And the next thing I knew, I felt like I don't want to say a pop because it didn't feel like a pop, but it was kind of like a snap, crackle, pop feeling. And I was in my body, I guess. I don't know where else I could have been, but it was nothingness for a moment. And my mom said she opened up the garage door, which was again separated from our home. So it was quite a distance from our home for a little girl to be heard. And she opened up the freezer door. She almost didn't. She thought, no, this is preposterous. This is ridiculous. But she did, thank God. And I was facing inward. And she turned me around and she said, I was ashen. Those were her words. You were ashen. There were no cell phones. My mom dropped me to go get help. She was screaming. And sorry, I hit my chin and cracked it open, and I took a breath. I fell. She dropped me. Fell right out of the freezer. And My mom was a little afraid of my father. He was an alcoholic, and he wasn't mean, but he wasn't always kind, and she didn't listen to him. And in those days, you listened to your husband regardless of what you felt, which is very unfortunate, but it's the truth. And women just didn't have the voice that they needed. And so she didn't tell him. She sent me to bed. And from there, I woke up. I wasn't feeling well. My sister told me to go back to sleep. My mom had used a little butterfly. My father owned hospitals, so she knew how to do all that. She had everything she needed. And I woke up again and I felt better. I didn't have a headache anymore and I felt better. And I looked around and there were spirits everywhere.
Wow.
They were looking in my window, under my bed, in the corner of the room, down the hallway. I was terrified. I covered my head and I said, go away, go away, go away. I just remember that so much. I did that for a lot. Even as an adult, I would do that sometimes. Go away, go away, go away. And thank goodness they didn't. And then my mom told me not to discuss it because of what happened to her. And so I didn't want to, but I couldn't help myself. And my sister said I could talk to her. So my sister was kind of my person. And I used to crawl in bed with her. And I would stand at the edge of the bedroom and call my mom because I had to go potty. And I would call her and she'd come because I couldn't walk down the hallway because I saw them and I didn't know who they were. They never hurt me. I don't know why I was afraid of them. They were all love, but they weren't supposed to be there. And I thought they were the boogeyman. That's what I thought for a lot of my years. And fast forward, I got used to it and it became my abnormally normal life. I didn't know that I had any abilities or that I was going to have them strong. Everyone has them, but strong. I didn't know that. I didn't know anything. It was just my life. So I didn't talk about it unless I saw someone like, oh, your grandma wants to play. And they go, you're so mean. My grandma died. And I'd go, and so I got bullied or picked on a lot in my journey because I wanted to feel that pure love again. I just wanted to be loved. And so I was very codependent in that. I just wanted them to love me, everyone. And they didn't, because not everyone loves us, just the way of the world. And, but I was getting visits. They'd wake me. Wake up, I just died. My name's Son. I'd be, what? And they would tell me, their story and I would listen. And then after a while, I got used to it. So I started writing it down when I got a little older and I still didn't know it was different. I never talked about it. And then probably because when I did, I got bullied. So I stopped, but nonetheless, I didn't talk about it anymore. And then later in life, in my teen years, I was actually married in my teen years. And I woke up one night and I don't even know if I had gone to sleep. So I can't say I woke up. It's not quite right. I just remember seeing my Nana at the end of my bed. And she was talking to me. And she was rocking in a rocking chair, which I never saw my Nana in a rocking chair. So it was really bizarre to me. And I said, go away, go away, go away. And she started to fade away. And then I just innately knew who she was. And I said, Nana, is that you, Nana? And she came back in, she faded back in and she said, I died. And I want you to know, she said a few things. And most what she wanted to say is that she loved me and she was okay. I was extremely close to her.
Wow.
And when she left, I woke my husband up and I said, I can go to sleep now. And he's looking at me really weird. And he goes, okay, good, go to sleep. What's that about? He has no clue that I've been going through this my whole life. I didn't talk about it. I didn't know to talk about it. I don't know how to explain that. I just didn't know. It just was. That's the best way to say it. And I woke up the next morning and I got a call and they said my Nana had died the night before and the exact time that she came. And my mom and dad were with her, so they knew. And I had no clue. And I ended up calling UCLA because they were doing ESP at the time, believe it or not. And I told the man my story and he said, oh, you sound like a medium. And I said, what's that? He said, you talk to the dead. And I hung up and I never spoke of it. Like, what? What did you just say to me? I was terrified. And that was it for me. I wasn't going to do that anymore. Unbeknownst to me, it was going to keep happening. I became a grief and addiction therapist, and I started working with people in addiction and grief. And I was still very codependent. I wanted to be loved, but I was a powerful force when it came to healing. And I can't explain that. But people would say, oh my God, we're going to have to deal with Susan's group today, because I was powerful. It didn't matter what they said. I was fully in myself, and they couldn't rock me or shake me. And so I helped a lot of people heal because of that, because they couldn't manipulate me. But I don't know how that was. I just was. And then they kept visiting me. And then I would start doing things like, I think your PTSD comes from the fact that you tried to revive your grandmother when you were 3 years or 4 years or 5 years old, whatever the age was. And you couldn't, and you had to lay beside her, and she died. And they'd say, I didn't tell you that. And I could feel myself just in shock, because I heard it loud and clear. And I would say, oh, I'm sure you did. No, Susan, I didn't tell you that. It's true, but I didn't tell you that. And I would back up. So I must be someone else's story. Someone else had the same story as yours. I'd do anything to cover it. I didn't come out as a medium for a lot of years, but I was doing mediumship the whole time.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I
Yeah.
love that story. Thank you for sharing that. The knowledge room. I feel like we started our journey with the medicine ayahuasca and delved deeply into that. And I remember seeing a vision of something similar, and you've just joined that dot for me. Because I've always wondered
Oh,
that
good.
room, like that visual. It just came to me when you were explaining that. It's what a story, Susan. It's like. And it stayed with
Yeah.
you from such a young age. A lot of people do lose their abilities because of, the years, the school, the bullying, like you said. And it's so great that you've kept following it and being brave enough to tolerate it,
I don't think I had a choice. I don't know if it was bravery. I don't think I had a choice. They never stopped coming. No, and I didn't know how to control it. I had no idea. I actually became friends with James Van Praagh because he taught me how to turn it down. He walked up to me and he said, oh, you've had a near-death experience. There's spirits all around you. And do you know how to turn that down? No, no. And I was kind of shocked when he said it, because I didn't talk about it. I'm going to turn on my air really quick. I'm so sorry. I can keep talking while I do it, but I just have to do it by my phone because it's really hot in my room. It's 77. No wonder I'm hot.
No wonder you're hot.
Yes. So we'll see if that works. Hopefully it will. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm not going to be able to keep going if I don't do something here. Let's see, auto. There we go. Okay, it should turn on pretty soon here. It gets really hot when I talk about the angelic realm. I get really hot. So anyway, that, he taught me how to turn it down, and I was grateful for that. And then it just kept coming. And I didn't set up house to be a medium. I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea how important the responsibility. I knew the responsibility of grief work, but I didn't know the responsibility of being a medium and how we have that person's soul in our hands, and we have their loved one's soul in our hands. And we're trying to connect those dots. And there's such a responsibility in that. And when I recognized that, I had a really hard time, because I was so afraid of doing it wrong, because it's never 100% accurate. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I kept doing it, and there I am.
That's wonderful.
That's the story.
Yeah.
I always say that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And
I have no
it's
option.
the case when you're working with people of giving them a message from someone who has passed. Is that what you mean by working with?
Yes. Yes. And that's what I do. Well, I do grief work. So first and foremost, But my goal is to connect people with their loved ones. And when you connect people with their loved ones, it's like having 3 years of therapy. And I started to recognize that, like, that's amazing. This person is healing. I'm going to turn my phone over now. It's finally went off. The beauty of that instant healing happening. And it doesn't mean you're not grieving. It simply means that the grief becomes bearable. Grief has its own power source. I tell people it's in the corner doing push-ups, waiting for your vulnerable moment. And here it comes, right? I'm in the grocery store, I'm looking at a can of beans, and all of a sudden, boom, there it is. And it's very powerful, and it decides when it's done with you or when it's done at that moment. You do not decide when you're done with grief. And when people try to control their grief, it gets worse. And they end up in morbid grief, which is long-term, very intensive grief that we want to avoid because you're already in intensive grief. So, I taught people that, how important it is to allow it to come. It's in charge. Let it be. Stop fighting it. What you try to control controls you. What you run from chases you, just like they taught me. So let go and allow it.
So wise words, because it's like what you resist persists, that's our little saying, and you just have to surrender. And a lot of people don't want to surrender to that, but so many people are looking for the answers. So it's great work that you're doing, joining the dots for them, because it's helping them in, these people are passing. It's also an opportunity for the cycle of life, death, rebirth for the family, whoever does pass. And it's an awakening. This is awakening to another realm. And, these things are all happening for a reason. There are no mistakes, like you said.
It really also seems like it's giving the person an opportunity to grow as a soul, like the conversation that you're observing as the child, these souls before they come in to experience these soul contracts that are going to be great catalysts for my soul's growth, which is code for to go through a lot of hard times, right?
Yeah.
It's like so often I joke
pain's our greatest motivator for change, isn't it?
Those soul contracts have got fine print up the back, it's like, oh my God, did I agree to this thing? So I think through helping them with that, like on the bigger soul picture, you're helping them to have the opportunity, if they see it because of their free will, but having the opportunity to grow through that pain, grow from that grief, and expand as a soul.
Exactly. We are here for soul expansion, and we have so many choices and so many doors that we can go to create that. And people say to me, well, if we have choices and doors, why don't we know what's beyond them if they're choices? And I say, that's part of the journey, is learning through our choice. If we knew everything, we wouldn't need to come here. We'd just stay there.
Yeah.
That's right.
What's the point?
And what's your view on people who ask about getting pointers on the future? What should I do next with this or with that, or etc.? Understanding that it's all free will and there could be so many different paths we could go on. Is that something you do? Do you do like readings of the future? Or?
I avoid it. I avoid
Yeah.
it. And let me tell you why. I have, for me, I honor everyone else's journey. I want to say that, but for me, there is no such thing as psychic ability as far as seeing everyone's future.
Right.
There's other ways I can see a trajectory, but if we have free will and I know your future, then I know your free will, and then it's not free will, it's a planned event, isn't it? So that makes no sense to me. It has to make sense to me. I'm very analytical. The spirit world makes sense. And if you understand that and you can make sense of it, you can actually step into that gift. What happens is there's all these sayings. So for instance, the spirit world is busy for the first 3 months after they die. And I'll ask people, oh, they have time there. Well, no. And I say, what calendar are you going by? Yeah. They can come immediately. So there's all these stories out there about the spirit world. And I just am very firm in my belief. It doesn't make me right or wrong. It's not about that. I just believe what they taught me, and I don't sway from that. So a loved one can come immediately. But I have people write me all the time and say, well, this other person told me that I have to wait 3 months. And I said, maybe you do, but they don't.
So many conditions.
There's no time there. There's no calendar.
No.
Yeah, so strange. You know, it's it's almost like, you know, the other thing they say is like when we come in, we forget how powerful we are and the knowledge and the experience we've learned in other lifetimes, and we fall under the veil of forgetfulness. It seems though, when you have a near-death experience, there is this seeping in there's a little bit of creep in the veil of forgetfulness. So it's like you might be able to remember a little bit more of the purpose of it all, or in your case, there is still a thread of a connection there to where you went during that near-death experience. And now you're back here with these, you know, extraordinary, beautiful abilities because of that experience, which was a gift, right?
Yes. And, you know, I work with children. I have my doctorate in divinity and I got it from Raymond Moody. And I did that because I wanted to work with children who have near-death experiences. And I did not get a regular job. I want to be really clear. There are people that go to school for eons to get you know, like a Juris Doctorate. It's not like that. It's different. It's a philosophy. You know, that's how he teaches it. And it's mystical. It's more mystical. However, I did do it. And so I claim it. And when I work with those children, their story, it's different than working with adults. They see the same things, but they verbalize it completely different. Not all of them see something. Some see nothing. Some of them come back with gifts that terrorize them, and I have to walk them through that. Some come back with no gifts. So I think it just depends. I say no gifts, meaning they're not seeing the gift.
Yeah.
I need to clarify that. So it's different for everyone. And it's such a passion for me because I note that it's different, although the similarities are cohesive. So I called it the well. Raymond Moody said to me, I go, Raymond, what's the well I'm seeing? Because I didn't see the tunnel. And he goes, have you ever thought it might be your tunnel? What? I mean, that's what I did. What? There it is. There it is. You know, that's what my whole soul did. Like I never understood why I didn't see the tunnel. And everybody else does. And he said, no, people call it the well. And he said, for sake of keeping it in a book, you have to write differently. And so for the sake of keeping it one singular thing, we took the commonality of the tunnel. And so the well, they call it all different kinds of things, but ultimately it's the tunnel.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. Isn't that something? Now I didn't go into it. I guess I didn't need to, but I was in it. I was there. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get pulled by it. I was just there.
Yeah. So when you see,
I didn't look back and see
when you see spirits, like how are you seeing their energy, or is it a knowing, or is it a sense? Like, is it invisible energy? Can you explain that to us?
All the above.
All the above.
All the above.
Okay.
So when I was a child, I saw them and I could hear them. So I had clairvoyance, clairaudient. That's clear hearing. Clair means clear in French, but get this. Clair also means water in French. And that blew my mind because I just saw this about a year ago. And I went, what in the heck? Because I kept saying we travel in water. And then I realized that that's what Clair means. Is that not mind-blowing?
Pete's mum's name is Claire.
Ah, well, it means clear or water.
Isn't that interesting?
And
that is pretty. Yeah. There's a lot about this conversation that's interesting, and dots that I'm joining. It's like my younger sister fell off the bridge into the stream and drowned at 3. I was 5, and you mentioned the number 6 or 333, right? So it's like through my life, I've lived at number 33. 33 was when like my first marriage ended and I met Roxy and we started a whole new life. And but I'm born on the 6th. I now live at number 60, a 6 and a 0. Before this house, I lived at number 15, a 1 and a 5. You know, that's like you've been saying.
Well, there's a lot of.
Oh, what am I going? Oh, no.
Yeah, there's a lot of empathic energy between the two of you, so that makes sense to me. But you actually have a male. I don't see your little sister. I actually see a male behind you. That's what I see. And I've been seeing him since you came into the room and sat down, and I wrote it down. I keep seeing a male. I don't know who they are because I'm not talking to them yet, but they're definitely there. And they are like family, if not family, but it feels like someone that's very close to you, and they don't feel old. So this is not a grandfather that died at 95 years old. This is someone else.
Oh.
And they're kind of in the middle ground. I feel like I'm middle ground. I'm 65, so I'm middle ground. You know, I'm not going anywhere for another 30 years.
Yeah.
As long as I'm healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I see around you. Now, I don't know who it belongs to, but I think it belongs to you. But you know, at the end of the day, we don't die.
Mm.
We are around. And I think that when we make a point to use the clairsenses to see them, you know, people will say to me, "Oh, I don't know who you're talking about." And then they'll come back later and go, "Oh my God, you know, my uncle died younger, or my mom just told me this and this and this was accurate information." And I just go, "That's okay. You don't have to understand," because the clairs are so very clear to me that I don't question it. I don't need I think when we need to be told, "Oh yeah, you're right," it's more about our ego.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I just let the clairs be what they are. So I saw male, I saw older male, but not you know, 95.
Yes.
So I assumed that it wasn't a grandfather, not to say it's not, but that's what I assumed, because he wasn't so old. I know he left rather rapidly, and it was a very unhappy time. And he feels like a good person. He does. He just had some issues. I want to say that he had some issues.
I reckon the Ogat and Roxy.
Yeah, I feel like this is my father.
Okay, how old was he when he passed?
He would have been around 33. So like, seriously, I'm yeah.
Tell them a story briefly.
He when I was 8, he was struggling with mental health and drugs and alcohol, and committed suicide.
Oh, interesting, because I put drugs. Yeah, so I write. I mean, I know this is kind of weird, but I write. I want to know what 6-2 means to you, or 2-6. What does that mean to you?
To me or to both of us?
6-2 to you.
I don't know.
2-6, perhaps. I was, yeah. Maybe that was when I was in being born and my father was 26.
How old were you when your father passed?
8.
6 + 2. Now we got it. That's what I'm looking for. So so that was my clue. So they speak metaphorically. And I couldn't hear 8, obviously, so they gave it to me a different way. And I just wrote it down the way they gave it to me, the way I could hear it. So he was probably saying she was 8, she was 8, she was 8. I heard 6 + 2 because I couldn't hear 8. And that's how it works for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I stopped. I pulled back for a second and asked that question, because I heard when I died. And you said that those dates didn't mean anything to you. So therefore, I kind of went to the next level of that. But that's how it works. So yeah, your dad's around. He's behind you guys.
It's interesting because I had a feeling that was happening. And as you're talking, I'm like smiling, going, if it's meant to come through, it would. And I'm not going to ask or anything, but it's so interesting how strong your senses are. It's like through a Zoom portal. It's just such good work that you're doing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And he did say drugs, and I wrote that down. But he said that when he first walked in. And then I wrote father. I actually thought it was your father. So all these things I write. So when I'm doing Zooms, when I'm actually doing readings, when I ask a question, my pencil's up here. And I ask just like this, so that people know it's already been written. And then I go right to picking it up.
I love that.
Because people don't trust, and I want them to trust. So I say, for ethical reasons, that's how I'm going to do this today.
Wow.
And they go, okay. So it's kind of just how it unfolds for me. There are, now I want to ask someone about their brother, something about a brother. Who has a brother in your journey? Is it your father has a brother on the other side? But a brother. And I'm not sure they're even on the other side. I'm just feeling a melody of that.
Probably Stephen, your brother.
Is he here on this
I've got
planet?
3 brothers.
They're all
I've got
alive.
3 younger brothers. They're all alive.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to tell you something after. I think I should say it after because it's personal.
Sure.
So I'm just getting a message for one of them and I don't know which one.
Okay.
So yeah. So we'll
Well,
talk. I'll give it to you when we're done.
Got that? Yeah, wonderful. Thank
Always
you.
cut
Thank
it
you.
though, too.
Yeah.
Your father wants to tell you he's sorry.
Oh,
He knows that there's a separation from that, but he still wants to tell you that. He had addiction. It runs in his family. He got it. It's true to self because someone else had it. May have been his father or his grandfather, but I know someone else had it. And he got very sick with it. He didn't like being on the planet with it. I do want to say that. I don't know how he died, but I know he didn't like being on the planet with it. And he's just telling me to tell you that he loves you and he loved you then. And he's been in your journey all along. Healed in your journey. He's actually a good soul with a broken journey.
thank you.
You're welcome.
That's nice.
It is.
So
Been working on that, as much as you can from this, let's call it physical realm, if you know what I mean, working through the feelings, talking more about the story, not keeping it in the closet and all of that sort of thing. So the work that I think you've done with that, then just getting a confirmation message, let's call it, from the other side, because it just sounds so great. I think, it's beautiful. It's encouraging.
It's quite interesting because this morning I woke up with this really crazy backache on the right side, and I know right side masculine, not supported by male somewhere. And as we've been coming closer to doing this podcast with you, the energy's been moving up my neck, and it's so interesting because I feel like it's just right here, like the energy.
Yes.
And it's now like I have to just release and let go of, something obviously around hanging on to something with him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he's very aware that you're working on this or you've been working on it. And he's here to tell you he's aware of that because there's a reason why he came. He didn't come just to say, I'm sorry and I love you. There's more to the picture. I think he wants you to know he's available to you to help you heal this if you just allow him in and you're pushing back.
Oh, okay.
And he doesn't want you to push back. Let
Mm,
him come in and help you heal this.
thank you.
He will. He's healed. He's everything you would wish your father to be and more.
Oh,
And that's important. See, our humanness remembers them exactly as they were here. And it's hard to picture them any other way. But yeah.
that's beautiful. Thank you for bringing that through. It's
You're
very
welcome.
kind of you.
I think so many people are going to be, inspired and curious after this conversation. I've loved it. I want to respect your time, but for people who would love to follow you and buy the book, and how can people get in contact with you?
SusanGraw.com. Right now, if they pre-buy the book, if it's, I don't know when this podcast will come out, but let me say, if they pre-buy the book, they're going to get a small mini book that they can download. And I'm doing 13 Zooms, one a month, to go through each chapter.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. And then as a group, and then also Susan Graw Official is where they can go for Instagram and TikTok and all of that. And yeah, it's infinite life, infinite lessons.
Yes.
And it's all
we'll
about,
share that right through our socials. And I understand the importance of getting pre-sales so the launch goes well and you spin the algorithm, and we'll help as much as we can with that, particularly because there's so much added value for people to be able to get on those Zooms and to go through each. I can only imagine the value in that. So look, we'll be discussing that more after this as we end this officially now, but after our chat we'll organize that so people can certainly be involved more and support you more. we wanted to say, wow, thank you for a wonderful conversation. I like it. Talk about amazing. It like really like blew us away. So very, very touching. You're a beautiful soul. And as I said at the beginning of
Thank
the
you.
call, you know, thank you so much for your work and what you're doing for the planet, for consciousness, you know, and the elevation of consciousness. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for saying all that. That makes me feel so warm and fuzzy. It really feels good. It does. Because some people don't feel that way about the work I do. And that's unfortunate, you know, for them. I wish they could change that thinking, but everyone's where they need to be to get where they need to get.
That's right. Like the power of contrast, you know, we appreciate the lights and you know, the real ones. Roxy and I, our jargon for someone is the person's very real. Oh, they're so real, you know, which is another word for they're authentic, they're the real deal. You know,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
Aussie slang, but it's like one of the highest compliments you can give someone. And
Oh, I love it. I appreciate you so much. You guys are so gorgeous.
Thank
thank you
you.
so
Truly,
much.
you are. I mean, you just shine. Your lights shine through you.
Thank
You
you.
can see it in your eyes. So I keep going back and forth because it's so strong in both of your eyes. It's just shining. I love it.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank
Well,
you so much.